I decided to marry my boyfriend Ethan and went to meet his family, but they didn't like me at all. They told me to never talk to them again. Maybe it's because they're used to getting what they want because they're attractive. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law were mean and jealous of anyone who had something they didn't. Unfortunately, they targeted me. Even my father-in-law and brother-in-law joined in and rejected me too. But a few months ago, I got back at them in a big way. I'm Amy, I'm 27 now, and I'm living happily with my husband, cute kid, and my parents. It all started 3 years ago when Ethan proposed to me. Ethan and I worked together and bonded over our love for movies. We went on lots of movie dates on our days off and eventually started dating. Ethan was easygoing and got along with everyone at work, earning him many friends. He didn't like arguments and was the type to forgive easily. I had a crush on Ethan ever since I joined the company, so when he asked me out, I was thrilled. I looked forward to work every day just to see him. Whenever I messed up at work and felt down, he'd stay up all night listening to me. That's when I knew I wanted to be with him forever. Ethan had dreams of starting his own business, and I wanted to support him every step of the way. I was ecstatic when Ethan proposed to me. There was no reason to say no, so I said yes right away. We decided to get married. The weekend after Ethan proposed, we went to my family's house to introduce him to my parents and tell them about our plans. Ethan got along really well with my parents, especially my dad. They liked him a lot and were happy for us. Seeing Ethan chatting happily with my parents made me feel really lucky to have him. The next weekend, we were supposed to visit Ethan's family. I realized I didn't know much about them, but I didn't think too much about it. Ethan had been living alone, so I figured he didn't keep in touch with his family much. The night before we were supposed to visit Ethan's family, Ethan told me over the phone, "My parents might be a bit strange tomorrow, but don't stress about it." I was a little worried about what he meant by strange, but I decided to wait and see. Since we had to wake up early the next day, I didn't dwell on it too much and went to bed. The next morning, we met at the station around 10 a.m. to go to his house together. It was my first time visiting his family since Ethan lived alone. Despite trying to calm my nerves, I felt anxious all morning. As we walked, I was so nervous that I could hardly focus on what Ethan was saying. Standing before me was a magnificent mansion, resembling a castle. The garden sprawled out grandly, and I couldn't help but feel intimidated at the thought of Ethan growing up here. However, his gentle smile helped ease my nerves as he said, "Feeling nervous? It's all right. Let's go." As soon as the front door opened, my mother-in-law greeted me warmly, saying, "You've come such a long way. You must be tired. Come in quickly." She was slender, impeccably dressed, with perfectly styled hair. Her expensive attire was flawless. Inside, I was greeted by my father-in-law, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, and their children. Thankfully, everyone except my mother-in-law welcomed me with smiles, which put me at ease. I was warmly embraced, took a seat on the sofa, enjoyed dinner while chatting with everyone, and announced our engagement. Ethan's family was thrilled, especially my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, who exclaimed, "We're so delighted to welcome such a lovely girl into our family." Their warm reception touched me deeply. The pleasant conversation flowed effortlessly. Ethan's family was quite chatty, and as stories were shared, I learned that my father-in-law owned a company specializing in package tours, with my brother-in-law working there as an executive director, aiming to take over the business in the future. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were devoted homemakers who also pursued interests like dance classes and flower arranging during the day. My sister-in-law took great care of her appearance and exuded confidence. My father-in-law was exceptionally kind, always wearing a smile and effortlessly easing any nervousness I felt by engaging me in various topics. I was genuinely relieved to see he was a good-hearted person. In the midst of the pleasant atmosphere, a conversation with my father-in-law shifted the mood. "Amy, I heard you work at the same company as Ethan. Are you a temporary worker there?" "No, I actually started as a full-time employee right after finishing university, just like Ethan. The company where Ethan and I work is a well-known corporation, highly sought after by job seekers. Securing a full-time position there is quite competitive, but fortunately, I was hired fresh out of college." "Oh, really? Where did you graduate from?" "I graduated from Harvard." That's incredible. That's incredible. You must be very talented. I'm proud to have someone like you joining our family." Amy's amazing, isn't she? She's hardworking, skilled at her job, and sharp-minded. I'm thrilled to marry her. Both my father-in-law and Ethan praised me, which was a bit embarrassing. In reality, I attended a prestigious university in the US, studying tirelessly throughout high school, even sacrificing sleep. My parents, despite financial challenges, worked hard to put me through college. I was determined to attend a good university, secure a decent job, and one day repay my parents for their sacrifices. I've been striving towards that goal wholeheartedly. Engaged in a lively conversation with others, I noticed my mother-in-law and sister-in-law had fallen silent. Concerned, I tried to steer the conversation in a different direction. Seeing a beautiful flower arrangement on the table, I asked my mother-in-law, "Did you arrange those flowers?" "They're beautiful." Her response was unexpectedly curt. "What? You, a professional in a top-tier company, interested in housewives' hobbies?" Confused by her sudden change in demeanor, I wondered why she was now being cold when moments ago she had been smiling. My sister-in-law added, "With your high education, you probably think housewives only talk about flowers." I hadn't meant to imply that at all. Feeling overwhelmed and unsure of how to respond, tears threatened to surface. Ethan intervened. "Hey, both of you, cut it out. Amy doesn't look down on anyone." His words were comforting, but I couldn't find the words to apologize or defend myself. So I remained silent, keeping my head down. Looking around, I noticed my father-in-law, who had been drinking since noon, snoring loudly and passed out on the sofa. My brother-in-law seemed bored, yawning and scrolling through his phone, creating a tense atmosphere in the room. When Ethan suggested it was time to leave, I felt relieved to escape the uncomfortable situation. On our way back to the station, Ethan apologized, saying, "I'm sorry about today. My mom and sister have a lot of pride, especially when it comes to their high school education." According to Ethan, my mother-in-law had worked at a flower shop right after high school, where my father-in-law had fallen in love with her at first sight. She was undeniably beautiful, attracting many customers to the shop just to see her. After persistent pursuit, they started dating and eventually got married. Even now, it seems my father-in-law is still smitten with my mother-in-law, always doing whatever she asks. My sister-in-law was also stunning. She and my brother-in-law had been classmates in high school and reconnected at a reunion in their early 20s. Seeing her beauty, my brother-in-law fell head over heels, and after persistent efforts, they ended up together. Like my father-in-law, my brother-in-law seemed to follow his wife's lead. Despite my higher education, I couldn't understand why they felt insecure. They were both beautiful women with caring husbands who always looked out for them. Yet, I couldn't shake off a lingering sense of unease and doubt about marriage. Nevertheless, with approval from both families, we began planning our wedding. Although some uneasiness lingered, I believed that open communication would help us understand each other better. "Don't worry, I'll always support you, Amy," Ethan reassured me, helping me stay positive. After nearly 6 months of meticulous preparation, just a day before our wedding, Ethan's phone rang. It was his mother. After a brief conversation, Ethan's shocked expression hinted at something unexpected. "What? Why? We can't just change it." "Hold on," he said before the call abruptly ended. When I asked what happened, I awaited his response anxiously. Ethan stunned me with his revelation. "My parents, they just informed me that they won't be able to attend the wedding tomorrow." "What? What do you mean?" I was utterly shocked and anxiously pressed Ethan for more details. According to him, it appeared that his parents had forgotten about a trip they had planned for the same day as the wedding and couldn't make it. I couldn't believe it. My future in-laws were backing out of the wedding at the last minute. We stood there, bewildered, struggling to comprehend why this was happening. Despite numerous attempts, we couldn't reach his parents for an explanation. Desperate for answers, we rushed to their house, only to find it dark and deserted, with no signs of anyone being home. I expressed my concern to Ethan. "When I visited your family the other day, I couldn't shake the feeling that I might have upset your mother and sister." Things felt tense towards the end. Ethan replied, "I've mentioned it before. Both my mother and sister have strong personalities. Smart women can be a bit stubborn. Even if they were upset, I wouldn't necessarily know." When I questioned, "But why would your father skip the wedding too?" Ethan explained, "My dad and brother-in-law, they tend to prioritize keeping the peace with their wives. They probably sided with them to avoid upsetting my mother." He looked troubled as he spoke, leaving me speechless. Ultimately, despite our efforts, we couldn't reach Ethan's family even on the day of the wedding. We had no choice but to proceed without them. Why did this happen? Did I inadvertently do something wrong? And was it truly just a matter of them forgetting about their planned trip to the hot springs? Even if it was, I struggled to understand why Ethan's family would choose a vacation over attending their own son's wedding. My parents, who had arrived at the wedding venue, were taken aback upon learning that Ethan's family wouldn't be attending. Ethan apologized to my parents, saying, "I'm truly sorry for the inconvenience my parents have caused." My parents reassured him, "It's not your fault, Ethan. Please don't worry. Let's just enjoy the wedding." Despite their comforting words, their expressions betrayed a hint of complexity. I felt awful for putting my parents in such a situation on our special day. Throughout the reception, we overheard whispers from both Ethan's friends and mine, all wondering, why aren't Ethan's parents here? Even our boss, who graciously offered to give a toast, inquired, "Where are your parents?" We were left grappling with how to respond. We couldn't possibly reveal the truth. My parents chose to go on a trip instead of attending their son's wedding. So when asked about Ethan's parents, we simply stated that they were feeling under the weather. What was meant to be a joyous occasion turned into a mentally draining ordeal. A few days after the wedding, Ethan and I visited his parents' house to share the news that the ceremony had concluded. "Oh, Amy, it's been a while. How was the wedding? Did you have a good time?" "I'm sorry, I couldn't attend because of my trip that day. I meant to bring you back a souvenir, but things got busy, and I forgot," she replied without a hint of remorse. Despite feeling sadness inside, pondering why I deserved such treatment, I forced a smile to maintain peace with Ethan's family. Ethan expressed his frustration, canceling the day before the wedding and having all the relatives miss out. "Is that even normal? If you didn't want to come, we could have spared you the invitation." His sister-in-law added, "I would have come if Amy wasn't the bride." What? What does that mean? I was bewildered, my head spinning with confusion. Then, to further escalate the situation, the mother-in-law chimed in, "Don't just blame us. I wanted to witness my son's special day, but Amy ruined it. I'm a victim too. I demand an apology." Ethan defended me, his voice firm, as I was too stunned to respond. "Amy didn't cause anything. She's innocent." Finally, the usually silent father-in-law erupted, "Enough. How dare you barge in here on our day off to complain? Is that why you're here? Get out." With furious anger, he expelled us from the house. As I slipped on my shoes at the doorway, a sharp prick startled me. Ouch! In a rush, I lifted my foot, spotting a caterpillar squirming inside my shoe. Roast out, I hopped outside and released the critter. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law, who had been observing, asked, "Are you all right?" with a spiteful chuckle. Eager to leave, I mumbled, "Sorry for the trouble," and made a swift exit. But my mother-in-law halted me. "Amy, please avoid getting involved with us, except for weddings and funerals." Huh? Before I could inquire further, she shut the door abruptly, ending the exchange. Confused about my apparent offense, all I wanted was to bond with Ethan's family. During the journey home, Ethan repeatedly apologized. "You don't have to force yourself to engage with my family anymore. I'm truly sorry." Hearing that my in-laws would have attended the wedding if I weren't the bride left me feeling guilty and perplexed, even though I didn't understand why. I couldn't help but sympathize with Ethan's predicament. The next morning, I woke up to an intense itchiness all over my body. It was unbearable, prompting me to leap out of bed and rush to the mirror, only to discover that my entire body was inflamed with fiery red swelling. Despite having to work that day, I quickly called in sick and headed to the dermatologist. It turned out that the swelling was a reaction to caterpillar stings, yes, from the one I encountered the day before. The itching was agonizing, and for nearly 2 weeks afterward, I struggled to sleep due to the severe discomfort. Reflecting on the incident, I recalled noticing my brother-in-law near my shoes at the front door when I visited Ethan's house. In the past, I might have dismissed it as a harmless mistake, but given the strained relationship with my in-laws, I couldn't shake off the feeling of distrust. About a month later, Ethan fell ill and was hospitalized. He had been experiencing persistent stomach pains for a week before seeking medical attention. Concerned, I insisted he take a day off work and accompany him to the hospital, where he was diagnosed with a probable gastric ulcer, requiring further tests and hospitalization. Despite the directive to only contact them for weddings or funerals, I hesitated but ultimately decided that Ethan's parents deserved to know, so I mustered the courage to give them a call. "Hello," my mother-in-law answered the phone. My hand trembled, and I felt queasy as it rang. That's how much my feelings toward my mother-in-law had soured. "Hello, it's Amy. I'm sorry for not reaching out sooner. I have some news about Ethan." "Oh, what is it this time?" Her dismissive tone grated on me. "Ethan's been hospitalized. They suspect a gastric ulcer and are running tests." "Ah, a gastric ulcer? Probably from overwork. Don't bother me with trivial matters." "I'm busy." "Trivial? Don't you care about Ethan?" "I don't want to hear from you." "I'll make it clear. I want nothing to do with you. Don't contact me again. I'm worried about Ethan." "I'll call him directly." Suddenly, my brother-in-law took the phone. "You're too persistent. Can't you see it's not a good time? I don't know what's going on with Ethan, but your constant calls are annoying." With that, he hung up abruptly. The click of the receiver felt like a breaking point. Their cruel words echoed in my mind. My mother-in-law's rejection, even with her son in the hospital, and the whole family's unilateral dismissal left me seething. They don't want me to bother them. Fine. I want nothing to do with that family. I won't ever reach out to them again, no matter what. Following the incident, Ethan's test results showed no major abnormalities, confirming a mild gastric ulcer. With medication and care, his health improved significantly. I shared everything with Ethan, who with determination said, "Let's distance ourselves from my family. Amy is all that matters to me now. If they can't accept her, they're not family, regardless of blood ties." A year later, Ethan left his job to pursue his longtime dream of starting a software sales business. This dream had been brewing since before our marriage, and he used his experience to make it a reality. Ethan dedicated himself tirelessly to this endeavor. And though we're still in the early stages, witnessing even a small part of his dream come to life filled me with joy. Our happiness multiplied when, a year into his business venture, we welcomed a healthy baby boy into our lives. My parents were thrilled about their new grandchild. Despite the nearly 2-hour journey from their home to ours, they visited frequently, filling each day with happiness. Naturally, we didn't inform Ethan's parents about the birth. Even if we had, they likely wouldn't have shown interest anyway, so it didn't bother us much. Since the phone call, we hadn't heard anything from them, which was a relief. It felt comforting to be free from the stress of dealing with Ethan's peculiar family. Then, several months later, something unexpected occurred. The novel coronavirus began spreading globally, prompting our country to declare a state of emergency and urge people to stay home. News coverage was dominated by discussions about the virus, highlighting its impact on industries like restaurants and tourism. Seeing the challenges these sectors faced made my heart ache. I found myself wondering about the state of Ethan's father's package tour company, but honestly, it wasn't my concern. In fact, I might have even smirked at the thought of how his business was faring. Despite this, Ethan's own business was thriving. Although there were initial financial uncertainties, our income had surpassed what Ethan earned as an employee, and things were going smoothly. During this period, Ethan started receiving numerous calls from his parents' home. However, he seemed hesitant to engage with them, often ignoring the calls altogether. Voicemails piled up, but Ethan chose not to listen, adamant about distancing himself from his family. I frequently reassured Ethan, saying, "You don't need to worry about me. It's okay to reach out to them." Despite my disdain for his family, I felt guilty about potentially causing Ethan to sever ties with his parents. Yet Ethan remained steadfast, insisting, "Amy is the most important person in my life, not my parents. If they can't accept you, even as my parents, they hold no value to me." I felt a mixture of sorrow and admiration for Ethan's unwavering loyalty. Despite Ethan's ongoing refusal to answer calls from his parents, a letter arrived one day from their family home. Its contents were straightforward. "Our business is on the brink of bankruptcy, and we need to discuss urgent financial matters." Their audacity was astounding, considering they had cut ties with us. They demanded immediate contact, but we chose not to respond. Let them deal with their own troubles. That's what they deserve. Soon after, my phone began to ring incessantly. Since I was at work, I didn't notice the call, but a voicemail was left behind. It seemed Ethan's parents, unable to reach him, resorted to contacting me despite my earlier request not to. Reluctantly, I listened to the message only to hear, "Is this Amy's number?" If Ethan keeps ignoring me, I'll pay him a visit. Make sure he knows. That was the extent of the message. 2 days after the voicemail incident, Ethan had a rare day off as it was Saturday. We were enjoying a peaceful family time at home, discussing our plans for the day after lunch when the doorbell suddenly rang. Glancing at the monitor, I saw my 4 in-laws standing outside. Ethan, noticing my shock, approached to see for himself. With a heavy sigh, he suggested we ignore them, confident they would leave if we didn't open the door. But I felt differently, thinking it would be pitiful to leave them standing outside after they had made the effort to visit. Ethan hesitated for a moment before agreeing to unlock the door. But pitiful? I couldn't bring myself to feel that way about such unpleasant in-laws. I intentionally kept the voicemail from Ethan, knowing it would draw them to our doorstep eventually. My surprise at seeing them on the monitor was just an act. I anticipated their arrival. There was a motive behind letting Ethan's parents into our home. A retaliation was brewing, and it was time for a showdown. As soon as the door swung open, the 4 of them barged in without any sense of courtesy. Annoyed, they grumbled about the delay in opening the door. Their lack of manners was astonishing. Upon entering, Ethan's mother noticed our son playing happily with his toys and questioned his identity. I calmly replied that he was our son. She remembered my request not to contact us but dismissed it, claiming it wouldn't make a difference since we didn't seem interested anyway. Her contemptuous gaze and muttered remark about my cheekiness only fueled my resolve. I found myself relishing the moment and decided to address Ethan's father directly. So, what's the purpose of this unexpected visit? It would have been courteous to inform us beforehand if you intended to drop by, I remarked casually. Ethan's father, visibly irritated, retorted, "Didn't you read the letter?" "You mean the one that arrived 2 days ago?" I countered. His response was laced with frustration. "If you had read it, you would have contacted us." It clearly stated the urgency of the matter. Swiftly, I replied. "Oh, you wanted me to reach out? But you made it clear you wanted no association with us." I saw no reason to comply. Suppressing my amusement at the stern expressions of the 4, I noticed Ethan, my husband, staying silent, wisely allowing me to navigate the conversation. It was incredible to think he was raised by parents lacking such basic sensibilities. Suddenly, my father-in-law's demeanor shifted, and he began pleading, "I apologize for the past. With COVID wreaking havoc on our business, cancellations are rampant, and new bookings are non-existent. If this persists, we face ruin. Can you spare some financial assistance?" I remained composed as I responded, "I sympathize with your situation, but I must decline. It's not easy to extend help to someone who's severed ties." However, genuine remorse might sway my decision. Enraged, my father-in-law erupted, attempting intimidation with a furious glare. Unfazed, I stood my ground, resolved to handle things my way. I made no demands. The choice was theirs. "You're welcome to leave if you'd like," I offered calmly. My father-in-law's frustration began to boil over, and he started pleading. "Please, I'm sorry. Help us out." Ignoring his pleas, I maintained my composure. Eventually, he instructed the others to apologize as well, and soon all 4 of them were begging. With a smile, I politely declined, saying, "No, thank you." Enraged by my refusal, my father-in-law slammed his hand on the table, shouting, You act all high and mighty when I'm humbling myself." He grabbed my collar, catching me off guard. Before I could react, Ethan intervened, firmly stating, "Dad, don't lay a hand on Amy." Ignoring Ethan's warning, my father-in-law demanded, "Are you taking your wife's side over your parents?" Ethan's response was unwavering. "Amy is the most important person to me right now. I can't condone mistreatment towards her, even from my parents. If you can't sincerely apologize to Amy, then leave." Infuriated, my father-in-law struck Ethan in the face. Amidst the chaos, I attempted to reason with him, but his anger only intensified. He began kicking Ethan while he was down, prompting me to intervene. As I tried to restrain my father-in-law, he pushed me aside, causing me to collide with the table's edge. Pain shot through my head as I realized I was bleeding. In a panic, I shouted for help, hoping someone passing by would hear. The other 3, frozen in shock, watched as my father-in-law continued to rampage, demanding money. Desperate, I opened the balcony window and cried out for assistance, fearing for our safety. 5 minutes later, the police arrived on the scene. My father-in-law's demeanor quickly shifted, attempting to downplay the situation by claiming it was all a misunderstanding. He even went as far as to accuse me of being drunk and shouting nonsensical things. I wasted no time in explaining to the officer the truth of what had occurred, urging them to take action against my father-in-law for assaulting both my husband and me and causing property damage by ransacking our home. In a sudden outburst, my father-in-law denied any wrongdoing and lashed out, punching a hole in the wall. His actions led to his immediate arrest, with the other 3 also taken in for questioning. My father-in-law was subsequently held in jail for some time. While my husband suffered only minor injuries, I required 10 stitches for the wound on the back of my head, leaving me with a sense of guilt for inadvertently putting him in harm's way. It later became apparent that my in-laws had been manipulated by jealousy, with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law instructing my father-in-law and brother-in-law to treat me coldly. Unable to resist their influence, they followed orders, leading to the series of events that unfolded. The incident with the caterpillar in my shoe was likely orchestrated by my brother-in-law, encouraged by my sister-in-law's envy. Jealousy has the power to drastically alter lives, and its consequences can be unforeseeable. The aftermath of their actions served as a stark reminder of the destructive nature of envy and the lengths some will go to in its grip. As expected, my in-laws faced financial ruin. Their business went under, and they lost their home, now residing in a modest apartment. With my father-in-law and mother-in-law nearing 70, finding employment is challenging. My brother-in-law, who coasted through life relying on his father's position, now struggles to secure steady work and is relegated to a part-time job at a convenience store. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law, lacking career prospects and plagued by a selfish nature, finds it difficult to hold down any job, leaving her mostly confined to their home. Following the incident, my father retired, prompting a decision for my parents and us to live together. Surprisingly, it was Ethan who suggested this arrangement, concerned about my parents' well-being in their senior years. With my parents caring for our son during the day, I've been able to return to work, feeling secure in balancing childcare and my career. Life with my loving husband, supportive parents, and cherished son is truly fulfilling. I am committed to never forgetting the gratitude I feel for this happiness. Hi everyone, I'm Sizzle, a single mother to a beautiful son. My story might sound tragic at first, but I assure you that justice prevailed in the end. This tale involves my husband, Ethan, his mother, Marie, and his grandfather, Ace. These names are fictional since they belong to a very wealthy family and could easily be recognized. I mean no harm in keeping our real identities private. I believed Ethan and I were in love during our 3 years of dating in college. I saw him as my soulmate. He was a true gentleman and did everything right. Naturally, I fell deeply in love and married him after his proposal. Everyone seemed happy except for his mother, Marie. She couldn't stand me even before the wedding. She would say things like, "You will never be good enough for my son. You don't know what you're talking about, Marie. Ethan loves me, and that's why he's marrying me. Oh, please, don't try to tell me what he's doing. I know my son well. He will never be happy with a low-class girl like you. He hates cheap things, and you are one of them. Your marriage won't last. Believe me, I will celebrate when he divorces you." Marie's disdain was clear because I wasn't wealthy like them. Only her father, Ace, was rich, serving as the family patriarch and supporting their lifestyle. Ethan worked, but his salary alone wasn't enough for a luxurious life. It was Ace's extra allowance that enabled it. I came from a struggling background and succeeded through hard work, securing a good job. I wasn't a gold digger and preferred a simple life, even when Ethan and Marie tried to make me conform to their way of living. I should have realized that these differences might doom our marriage, but I was too naive. I trusted that my husband's love would bring me happiness after a life of hardships. Ethan's care deeply affected me. He did everything to ensure I had a good life and went out of his way to keep me happy. Ace, too, was a wonderful grandfather, insisting I call him Grandpa. Ace was fond of me from the very first day we met, so Marie's hatred never caused problems in our marriage. Both Ace and Ethan consistently stood up for me. I had no idea how horribly things would eventually turn out. Ethan was eager for us to start a family, and wanting to make him happy, I agreed. At his insistence, I even quit my job to stay home and care for our child. Though initially reluctant, my feelings changed the moment I discovered I was pregnant. I was determined to do my best for our son. He remains the best thing that came out of my marriage. I still remember the joy of holding him for the first time, thrilled to start our new life together. But everything changed for the worse as soon as I stepped back into our home. Marie took my son from me just as I returned from the hospital, still weak and recovering. This sudden, confusing turn of events left me reeling. As I tried to understand what was happening, I saw Ethan throwing 3 packed suitcases at me. "What is going on? What are you doing?" I asked, bewildered. "What do you think we're doing, Cecil? Your time is up. You need to leave the house," Ethan replied coldly. "Wait, what? What are you talking about, Ethan? What's happening?" I pleaded, desperately trying to understand. "We're kicking you out, and I'll be divorcing you very soon. That's what's happening, Cecil. Did you really expect me to put you on a pedestal and worship you for the rest of my life? Why are you being so cruel? What's happening? Why are you doing this?" I cried out in shock and disbelief. "You have served your purpose," Ethan said, his words cutting deep. "We don't need you anymore, so take your trash and get out." "You have to be kidding me, right? Marie, you can't do this to me." "Ethan, why are you doing this? What's going on?" I pleaded, my voice shaking. "Didn't you hear my mother, Cecil? You've already given birth to my baby, so I have my heir. I don't need you anymore. I'll be divorcing you at the first chance I get," Ethan said, his words slicing through me like a knife. I felt like I was in a horror movie. The man I had married was now a stranger, cold and unrecognizable. I shook with anxiety, overwhelmed by their cruelty, my emotions still raw and my hormones in turmoil after the birth. Marie's voice cut through my sobs. "The housekeeper has packed your clothes so you won't taint this house with your presence any longer. My sweet grandson will be raised with the finest care and soon forget about his cheap mother." "That's impossible. I will never leave my son behind. If you want me out of your lives, I will go, but I won't abandon my child," I cried out, desperation lacing my words. "By all means, Cecil, leave. Who said we want you to stay? We're telling you to go. You have no choice," Marie retorted, her words dripping with disdain. My heart was shattered from Ethan's betrayal. Marie's animosity had always been clear, but I had dismissed it as jealousy. Her sudden interest in me after I got pregnant had seemed suspicious, but I had never imagined it would come to this. I couldn't fathom why Ethan, the man who once loved me, was acting this way. My mind struggled to accept that he didn't love me anymore. Tears streamed down my face as I looked at Ethan. "How can you be so cold to me, Ethan? Don't you feel anything kicking the mother of your child out of your house?" "My child won't need a mother. Like Mom said, we have plenty of staff around the house," he replied, his words void of any warmth or humanity. "Who will help my son grow up to be like me, Ethan? You want to take him away from his own mother? Do you really think he'll have a great life without me? Our son needs his mom," I pleaded, my voice trembling with desperation. Ethan laughed, a cold, heartless sound that shattered my already breaking heart. I stood there, frozen, unable to believe what was happening. The man I had loved was disappearing, replaced by a monster who cared nothing for me or our child. When Ethan finally stopped laughing, he sneered, "What makes you think my son needs you? He's just a newborn. He doesn't even know who you are. We can hire plenty of wet nurses and nannies to ensure he grows up well." "My son is right," Marie added with a smirk. "My grandson will have everything he needs. You're the last person fit to raise him. You're a low-class woman who can't even dress herself properly. If I left my grandson in your care, he'd turn out to be a loser." "Oh, how embarrassing you've been all these years. I'd rather die than see my son suffer the humiliation I endured because of you." Ethan's words dripped with disdain, as if he regretted every moment he had spent with me. His eyes were filled with contempt, and his voice carried the weight of years of annoyance and regret. Shaking, I could hardly find the words to respond. Tears streamed down my face as I choked out, "Did I humiliate and embarrass you? How?" "Do you really want to know how you embarrassed and humiliated me?" Ethan retorted, his voice filled with venom. "Just look at you, Cecil. You come from a low-class family and used to work a 9-to-5 job like some broke woman." I needed to hear those words to finally see Ethan for who he truly was. As painful as it was, his cruel honesty exposed the depth of his contempt. "You were never suited for an upper-class family like ours. Mom tried so hard to teach you her ways, but you didn't even want to learn anything," Ethan scoffed. "Wait, so you wanted me to become a rich snob? If I was such an embarrassment, why did you even fall in love with me?" "Who said I fell in love with you, Cecil?" Ethan sneered. You were beautiful, so I thought maybe I could groom you into a nice trophy wife. But your cheap habits never went away. In that case, why didn't you just leave? I asked, hurt and bewildered. I would have dumped you after having some fun, but then Grandpa liked you. He wanted us to get married and have kids. If I'd walked away, Grandpa would have been furious, and I'd have lost his support. That's why I married you. Now that you've given me the grandson I wanted, I have no use for you anymore. So that was it. Ethan had married me because Ace wanted me as his granddaughter-in-law. Ethan feared that if he left me without reason, Ace would cut off his allowance and inheritance. To stay in Ace's good graces, he married me. Ethan's insistence on having a child suddenly made sense. He wanted an heir to secure Ace's fortune. I had naively complied, and now I was suffering the consequences. This was all part of Ethan and Marie's twisted plans. Ethan had never loved me. He had only wanted to use me for his benefit. The man I married wasn't my soulmate. He was a manipulator. Disgusted, I said, so that's what this was all about. You just wanted your grandfather's fortune and used me to get on Ace's good side. You destroyed my life just for that. Who cares about your life, Sizzle? Ethan replied coldly. As far as we're concerned, you have no relationship with us anymore. I'm still the mother of your grandson and married to your son, Murray. You can't end relationships in a day. We're already working on that, Sizzle. You don't have to worry about it, Marie said, her voice dripping with contempt. Our best lawyers are handling your divorce and the termination of your rights to my grandson. I will never let that happen, Marie. I don't care if Ethan divorces me. My love for him is already gone. I won't stay with someone who doesn't love me. But if you think I'll give up my child, you're both dead wrong. What can you do, Cecil? Marie sneered. We'll get the best lawyers and trap you neatly. Don't worry, we'll even offer you some good money to disappear. We'll compensate you with what we think is reasonable. Cooperate, or we'll make your life a living disaster. Their threats ignited a burning rage inside me, replacing my heartbreak with fury. I looked at them, their faces smug and confident. Marie still held my newborn son, and I knew asking for him back wouldn't work. She had more people on her side, and I was too weak to fight. I didn't want to risk my son's safety by trying to snatch him away. Instead, I took a deep breath and spoke calmly. You want me out of the house? Fine, I'll leave. I'll go right now. But I will not let you take my son from me. We'll see what you can do, Sizzle, Ethan said with a smirk. Once people or lawyers know who they're dealing with, no one will be on your side. I don't need lawyers for what I have planned, Marie. I promise you right now that you and Ethan will pay for what you've done to me today. This is not the end. Oh, please, Marie scoffed. Save your ridiculous threats for someone else, Cecil. You can't touch us. We will crush you anytime. We also There's no use going to Grandpa about this. Blood is thicker than water, and he will side with his family over anyone else. He always has. I didn't bother to grace them with a reply. They simply didn't deserve one from me. I refused to stand there and waste my time while Marie and Ethan made fun of me and threatened me. It wasn't my style to threaten or yell at people. Mentally and physically exhausted and worried about my child, I needed to conserve my energy to deal with them later. So, I quietly collected my bags and left the house. Marie and Ethan actually followed me, ensuring I had truly left. They didn't need to worry. I had no interest in staying around for their insults. My skin crawled with their words. I called an Uber and left. From the window, I saw Ethan and Marie hugging and giggling as if it was the best day of their lives. They got what they wanted, an heir and rid of me, just as they had planned. However, they didn't know I wouldn't leave so easily. I wasn't giving up my son, and I intended to teach them a lesson. While Ethan came from a wealthy family with powerful lawyers, I didn't have much money or resources. My chances of winning against them were slim to none. I knew I needed help, and Ace was my only option. I went straight to Ace's house with my belongings, feeling a twinge of nervousness. Ethan's words echoed in my head, reminding me of Ace's loyalty to his family. There was a small fear that he might turn me away in favor of them. After all, I felt like the nobody Marie and Ethan had always said I was. Still, I held on to hope that Ace at least would do the right thing. And I wasn't disappointed. When Ace entered the living room and spotted me with my suitcases, he seemed genuinely surprised. I thought my staff was joking when they said you showed up here with suitcases. I can see they were serious, he remarked. Well, they certainly were joking. I'm here, Grandpa, I replied, trying to hold back tears. What's going on, Cecil? Have you been crying? Your eyes look puffy and you really don't look well, Ace observed. They kicked me out of the house, Grandpa, and they took my son, telling me to get out of their lives, I explained, my voice quivering with emotion. Ace's expression darkened with anger. Who did this? Tell me everything right now, Cecily. As I recounted the events, I couldn't hold back my tears any longer. Despite trying to stay composed in front of Ethan and Marie, the truth was too much to bear. My life was unraveling, and everything I thought I knew about my marriage was a lie. Despite my love for Ethan, his betrayal had shattered me. Sitting on Ace's couch, I poured my heart out to him. He listened with concern, his anger matching mine as I recounted the injustices I had faced. After I had calmed down a little, I explained, I came here because I didn't know where else to go, Grandpa. You've always been kind to me, and I knew you would at least offer me temporary shelter. You did the right thing by coming here, Cecily. You can stay as long as you want. This is not just temporary shelter. This is also one of your homes, Ace reassured me. I don't think I have a home anymore, Grandpa. I don't even care about that. I just want my son back. I can't be without him. I'll leave Ethan like he wants me to, but I can't leave my son, I confessed. So, you decided to leave Ethan. Is that what you want to do? Ace inquired. I can't stay with him anymore, I replied firmly. Grandpa, he showed me his true colors, and I know he's not the man I loved. Our entire marriage was a lie. I think I've lost all the love I had for him, I confessed, my voice trembling with pain. My grandson has messed up big time, Cecil. I don't know how to apologize to you for this. What he and my daughter have done is not okay. Actually, I think it would be better for you to leave him, Ace admitted, his disappointment evident. I am willing to do that, Ace, but Ethan and Marie want me to terminate my rights to my kid. I don't want that, Ace. Please don't ask me to do that, I pleaded, fearing his response. I was terrified that Ace would side with Ethan and Marie on this matter. While he didn't push me to stay with Ethan, which I was grateful for, I worried he might not support my decision to take his great-grandson and leave. However, Ace's next words surprised me. I will never ask you to give up my great-grandson, Cecil. You are his mother, and he needs you in his life. What he doesn't need is an evil father and grandmother like Ethan and Marie, Ace declared passionately. Oh God, the things they have told you and what they have done to you are horrible. I don't know what to do, Grandpa, I admitted, feeling overwhelmed. My dear Cecily, you don't have to worry about anything. I'm here for you and my grandson. I will never separate a mother from her son. Ethan and Marie will pay for what they have done, Ace assured me, his voice filled with determination. Really? You'll take my side over them, Grandpa? They're your family, and like they said, blood is thicker than water. You always put your family above everyone else. That's what I liked about you, I said, surprised by his unwavering support. That's some nonsense, Cecily. If Ethan and Marie are my family, you and my grandson are too, Ace replied firmly, leaving no room for doubt. I gave you the mission to call me Grandpa instead of my name because you are family to me. At the end of the day, I won't tolerate anyone being so cruel and vile, even if they are my own family. So Marie and Ethan are going down, no matter what. Ace's kindness brought tears to my eyes, but in a good way. I was truly fortunate to have Ace as my grandpa. He filled a little hole in my chest that was there because I never met my own grandparents. I will always be grateful to Ace for what he did for me. He was furious and promised me justice. Quickly, he called his staff and made a few phone calls. Meanwhile, Ace's housekeeper stayed with me, ensuring I had food and was all right. It was ironic that an unknown woman was showing me more compassion than my own husband and mother-in-law. I hated myself for falling in love with a man like that. After a while, Ace returned to the living room and asked me to come with him. In the car, he shared his plan for Ethan and Marie. It was glorious, and I couldn't help but feel a little sorry for what was about to happen to them. Their lives were about to take a drastic turn for the worse. We arrived at the house, and the staff let me in because Ace was with me. Ethan and Marie came rushing down the stairs to see why I was there. However, their demeanor changed when they saw Ace's angry face. It was enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. Despite their attempts to maintain a fake pleasant expression, their nervousness was evident. They greeted Ace, trying to mask their apprehension. Do I look like I'm here for lunch, Marie? Why on earth did you kick out your daughter-in-law, and what am I hearing about taking away my great-grandson from her? There was also something mentioned about a divorce. Care to explain that, Ethan? I don't know what you're talking about, Grandpa. Cecily left of her own accord. She said she doesn't want to be a mom or a wife anymore. We didn't do anything, Ethan replied hastily. That's right, Dad. Cecily walked away on her own, and now she's spreading lies about us. I always knew she wasn't a good fit for the family, and now you know what kind of a horrible woman she is, Marie chimed in, attempting to paint me as the villain. Their attempt to twist the narrative shocked me. For a moment, I feared Ace would believe them. Even Ethan and Marie seemed confident he would, but they were left flabbergasted by Ace's response. Do you think I don't know what goes on in this house? Do you think you can manipulate me with lies? Dad, we're not lying to you. Shut up right now. I don't want any filthy lies coming out of your mouth. Have you forgotten that this house is in my name? The staff here are on my salary, so they tell me everything that happens around here. Yes, I know everything that you two have tried to do. Did you really think I would let you off the hook so easily after you manipulated me and Cecily? I can't believe this, Grandpa. Please, you have to understand. I don't love Cecily. I only married her to make you happy, Ethan pleaded. Oh, don't worry. I know all about how you had planned to use and discard Cecily, but only married her because you didn't want to risk losing your inheritance. You think that was a noble thing to do, Ethan? Is that the values you uphold? I taught you. Perhaps it was your good-for-nothing mother who made you this way. Ethan tried to interject, but Ace shut him down immediately. Did I give you permission to talk, Marie? Ace's voice was sharp, cutting through the tension in the room. Marie and Ethan were now seriously scared, while Ace remained very, very angry. I couldn't help but enjoy watching them being scolded by Ace. It was glorious, but I knew it was just the start of the show. Ace continued to berate Ethan and Marie for a good hour, reducing them to tears. He reminded them that they were both at his mercy because they lived on his money. When he was done, Ethan was literally on his knees, begging for forgiveness, while Marie cried like a child. I'm so sorry, Grandpa. I can see that I made a big mistake. I was just overwhelmed and made the wrong decision, Ethan pleaded, his voice shaky with remorse. Yes, we're sorry, Dad. We truly recognize our mistakes. We shouldn't have separated a mother from her child. Cecily can move back here if she wants to. Yes, she can come back, and we'll welcome her with open arms. I promise I will be a better husband, too. I will work on myself. Things will go back to being perfect again, Ethan rambled, desperation evident in his tone. I don't think any of this is your decision to make. You two are no one to allow her back into the house because this house is mine. Plus, it's up to Cecily to decide if she wants to stay married to an imbecile like you, Ethan. What do you say, Cecily? Do you forgive them? Ace turned to me, awaiting my response. I knew well enough that if I said no, there would be dire consequences for my husband and mother-in-law. But I couldn't bring myself to say yes, knowing their remorse was only surface level. So, I calmly looked at Ace and said, No, I don't think I can forgive them, Grandpa. Plus, I haven't even asked for my forgiveness. Please forgive me, Cecily. We made a huge mistake, dear. We are family, so let's just look past this one time. I'm sure we will have a stronger bond after this, Ethan pleaded once more. Don't even bother with lies anymore, guys. You know what you two are. Even if you turn a new leaf and become nice to me, deep down, you two are awful people, and I don't associate myself with people like you, I replied firmly. Good decision, Cecily. I applaud you for that. So you heard her, Ethan, Marie. Looks like you two are in deep trouble, Ace concluded, his voice unwavering. Now you two need to vacate this house right now so that Cecily and my great-grandson can stay here, Ace declared firmly. What? You're kicking us out? You can't do that to us, Dad, Ethan protested. My staff has already started to pack your bags on my order. I will have you two thrown out just like you tried to throw out Cecily. Oh, and one other thing, you can kiss your allowances goodbye. I won't be wasting any more money on imbeciles, Ace retorted, his tone unyielding. Ethan and Marie absolutely cracked up when Ace made his decision. They begged and pleaded with him for mercy, even appealing to me for forgiveness, knowing that only I had the power to sway Grandpa Ace from his decision. But Ace remained resolute, keeping them in a state of despair with his relentless berating. Ultimately, the house staff arrived with their belongings, which Ace promptly threw at them, instructing them to leave. Seeing Ace so angry, they quickly departed before he could publicly make a scene by having his staff escort them out. I didn't know where Ethan and Marie went after this. What I do know is that they kept blowing up my phone with apologies and sometimes nasty messages. They desperately wanted to come home and make things better with Ace, but he was definitely not having it. They even tried to recruit family members who strictly denied them help because of Ace, leaving them to fend for themselves. Eventually, Ethan and I divorced and he lost custody of our son. I was happy because I didn't want his evil influence on my child. I was already living in the house I used to live in because Ace didn't want his great-grandson and me to be away from comfort. He actually ended up signing over the house to me, leaving most of his assets to my son in a trust so that he can access them when he's older. As for me, Ethan is stuck paying child support and alimony since he has a job. It's not much for me because Ace also gives me an allowance, but it is a lot for Ethan, who now has to support his mother,